All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to register for today's webinar. My name is Chris Cooper, and I work for CineMassive, a company headquartered in Atlanta, and we've been designing and deploying advanced video wall solutions for command and control rooms since 2005. Before we get started, please note you can submit any questions you have in the chat box, and we'll cover all of them at the end of the presentation. In addition, we'll also send everyone a link to this recording of the webinar to everyone who registered. To start off, Tom Polivka, our Vice President of Sales, will kick us off with a short presentation. Then Aaron Leiker, our Executive Vice President of Sales Strategy, will walk us through a short demonstration of the latest version of our CineNet platform. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn things over to Tom.
Thanks, Chris. I'm excited to be talking to such a large, diverse audience. I'll provide a short intro before we segue to our demo. So the terms command center and control room, which, by the way, we might use interchangeably during this webinar, mean different things to different people. So I wanted to take a couple of minutes to talk about our intended audience. If you're considering designing, deploying, or replacing a command center, you might be working for a police department or fire department, looking to lower crime or increase 911 dispatch efficiency for your first responders. You might be helping a major logistics company track the movement of critical freight worldwide. Or you're tasked with monitoring loads and capacity and coordinating outage response in a utility control center. Maybe you manage a global security operations center for a major healthcare provider or a large technology company analyzing and responding to security incidents. On the other hand, you might perform Red Force tracking or monitor a battle space for one or more of our DoD branches. This is just a sample of domains we deal with every day, and down below you'll see a subset of use cases we see on a regular basis. Some, like real-time crime centers and 911 dispatch, are market-specific. Others, like SOCs and NOCs, are common across many companies and agencies. Regardless of use case, all these sites have key criteria in common. These are mission-critical sites staffed around the clock and throughout the year. They typically require a very large number of sources and dynamic layouts. They're designed to provide a global common operating picture. And finally, they must support expedited decision-making and response. By the way, I know that some of you might be using your organization's conference rooms to convey some of this critical information via video teleconferencing. That's fine, but somewhere there must be one or more dedicated rooms equipped with highly optimized platforms that meet the requirements above. So whenever I attend webinars with best practices in the title, I find myself wondering, how are you actually qualified to speak about best practice? It's a term that's almost overused at this point, so I think it behooves us to back up our experience. First of all, we've designed and deployed over 800 systems worldwide. Some of these are single room deployments, but many efforts entail repeat deployments for global enterprises. As discussed, we've created the broadest array of command center environments, from SOCs and NOCs to enterprise operation centers and utility control centers. We've deployed miniaturized, ruggedized technology to support mobile command centers for first responders and warfighters in the field. At the other end, we've supported arena-sized watch floors with hundreds of panels. Paraphrasing the popular trope, we know a few things because we've seen a few things, I'd say instead, we've seen a lot of things and we've helped our customers see a lot more than they expected. So now we come to the issue that needs to be addressed. The crisis we're facing together has mandated that we physically separate ourselves from our coworkers. In most cases, we've left our employer-furnished cubes and offices and set up shop in home-based workspaces. Luckily, there's a full range of collaboration tools like WebEx, Microsoft Teams, and Zoom to create the physical meeting experience by putting everyone in the same virtual room. We use these at CineMassive, and I assume others on this call are also becoming remote veterans by now. Companies are even attempting to recreate the water cooler experience by hosting casual meetups, parties, and Friday happy hours online. Is it a 100% substitute for the on-site experience? Probably not, but in many cases it's good enough, right? Command centers and control rooms present unique challenges that we don't see in other work environments and conference room scenarios. They're confined, secure spaces occupied often around the clock by staff monitoring a variety of source inputs integrated to produce visual intelligence. Making effective decisions in this environment depends on the ability of the staff to view what some would call a single pane of glass. As most of you probably know, processing extensive video traffic requires on-premise compute resources. In some cases, application sources consumed by the video wall will also be hosted locally. So what are we hearing from people looking to adapt their command centers to offsite operation? As discussed already, the global common operating picture is table stakes. If you lose the ability to view and collaborate around a video wall, the exercise is pointless. Viewing of the wall contents from home or other remote offices in a secure fashion is also critical. Since an operation might involve physically distributed command centers, video wall content sharing across sites at the same resolution is very important. For instance, the headquarters command center might want to look over the shoulder of subordinate command centers. Since operators and technical staff might be absent from the site, wall layouts and behaviors must be controllable from remote locations. Needless to say, these functions need to be accessible to non-engineering staff and not require programming. Finally, a major request we hear is for the ability to interact directly with websites on the wall. The explosion of URL-based sources is making this feature a necessity. So to recap, we want to demonstrate how day-to-day command center access and operations can be moved off-site to accommodate the new restrictions around social distancing. Of course, we want to accomplish this without impacting decision-making by key staff that aren't in the facility. And we have to assume that first responders and other frontline operators may be using mobile command systems to stream content back to one or more stationary walls. Finally, it's important in public safety and government use cases to support coalitions that span agencies and disciplines. Now I'm happy to pass control over for the most exciting part of our presentation. Aaron Leiker has been working at CineMassive for over 8 years. In that time, he's helped create some of the most innovative command center designs, including global operation centers for 2 of the largest network providers in the world. I'm confident that you'll come away impressed with his understanding of the distributed command center issue.
Thank you, Tom. Great presentation, and thank you all for joining us. I really appreciate your time. I'm going to focus this demonstration on a few things. First, I want to make sure anyone who's new to CineNet and CineMassive to get a basic tutorial in how to use this tool, to effectively place content on their video wall, create layouts, and manage their third-party, audio-video devices. After we've established that baseline understanding of the platform, we're going to go into some specific techniques and tools and setups that you can use to connect to remote operation centers, but also how myself as a remote operations staff can contribute my desktop to the command center video wall. After I'm finished with that, I want to spend a little time on how you can configure and make changes to the system really quickly to support any new emerging business or mission need. In this demonstration, I'm actually going to log into 2 different systems. One is going to play the role of our primary operations center. That is the system I'm about to log into. The other is going to play the role of our remote operations center. So as I log in, I'm logged in as an admin. As an admin, I get a few extra privileges. I can make system setting changes, and I can also make user management changes. But what I really want you to focus in on here on this welcome screen is how we've bridged what is normally a virtual construct of managing content on a video wall through software we've made it to where you actually enter in the room you plan to use. So if I wanted to use the conference room, I go into the conference room. If I want to take part in an activity in my operations center, I will select that room. From there, it'll present various activities that have been set up in CineNet to support any particular task that is routine in that operations center. So here at CineMassive, we use activities to demonstrate our tools and system designs within the various use cases that Tom mentioned. So at any given time, this system may need to demonstrate, to a power utility how it's going to maintain situational awareness with their SCADA applications. It might need to show a network operations group exactly how they can view and configure their dashboards. Real-time crime, and physical security, how do you access cameras and your video management system? And of course, today, a big point of this webinar is how do you support, first responders as well as remote emergency response tasks. So I'm going to use our emergency operations activity, and it's setting everything up for me. Layouts that have been created specific for this activity, devices that have been selected for this activity, and of course assets that are pertinent to what I'm doing right now. Just a quick tutorial on this interface. I am currently in live mode. What live mode allows the user to do is actually see the video wall in real time inside this user interface. That is in contrast to edit mode, which does not have a live preview. So that's a choice a user can make. I like using in live mode. Down below, you can select layouts. The system has 2 layouts configured. We're going to make a third here in a minute. And then these are the assets, and I'm going to show you how we can create assets that aren't currently there. On the right are the devices that I can manage. So whether I need to make a video conference call, select an audio source, or play a physical media player, I can do that here. And then also I can select a behavior, and more on behaviors towards the end of this demonstration. So with that tutorial, I'm going to show you how we can quickly make a new layout. So I like to start layouts by placing the time zone clocks where I like them. In this case, I'm going to put them on the side. I might put my primary data source as large as I need it. I need to make sure everybody in the operations center can see it, as well as these remote staff members. Let's make sure we have local and national news present, and we also need we might need weather information. But let's say there is a piece of information that when I was building this command center I didn't anticipate needing. Well, we have a solution for that, and that's our CineAgent module. With CineAgent, you can actually go add web-based content straight to the platform without the need of adding a PC or asking a operations staff member to surrender their desktop. So let's go grab this now. So you'll see right there in the middle, the COVID-19 dashboard popped up as an asset. I'm going to now take that asset and place it on my video wall. What happened there was CineNet went out, grabbed this information, placed it on the video wall, and also gave me, the user, a real-time view of it. What's really exciting about CineAgent, and so exciting that we're actually going to do a dedicated webinar, more on that later, is not only did it go get this information to present on my video wall, but I can actually drill into that information using CineNet. So it's one thing to see Google Earth on a wall, it's another thing to manage it and actually drill down into the information that might be overlaid on it. And this is all happening in real time. It's very responsive. The other thing for you technical folks to notice is this is a 3D application. And there is just no other processing platform out there that could go grab a application as graphically rich and intense as Google Earth and place it on a video wall, let alone allow the user to use it. Now I'm going to jump back out. I've drilled down in that information. I could do the same thing with the COVID dashboard. Let's say we're moving from a national response to a world response. Let's go ahead and click that now. I think the COVID site's a little slow right now, but that should update soon. There we go. Let's just drill into the United States here. We're situated in Atlanta, so let's see what what's going on there. And we'll back out of that. And the other interesting thing about CineAgent is there's no limitation to the number of URLs you can add. The only limitation is the number of URLs you can see concurrently, and more on that in a future webinar. Now that I have my layout established, and I may want to recall this later, down here there's a save button. So if I hit save, it's going to give me a pre-populated name. I can change it to whatever I want. And another common question is, how many layouts can I save? And the answer is unlimited. You can keep making these and overwriting them until the system meets whatever requirement you may have. So now you'll see I have this daily operations layout. I have the demonstration layout that I just made, and then we're going to transition over to what we call our ROC layout. So this is a situation where I need to connect to a remote operations center. So what I did was I actually pulled up the video wall of the remote operations center. I also established a Teams connection at the same time. Of course, I kept news and weather up in the event I needed it, as well as the local time of the group that I might be corresponding with. So now I'm going to move over to that remote operations center. And just to show you, I'm going to call up a layout. This video wall is currently empty. The only things on there is the desktop. I'm going to select a layout, and you'll see that layout populated here. CineNet did a few other things. It also put this red border, which I decided to have. It should have a red border to indicate that there is an escalation. The situation is urgent. We need your help. CineNet also allows the user to make text overlays and position that overlay wherever is appropriate. So in this case, I labeled it as Remote Operations Center. This is really important, especially if you're connecting multiple operations centers together. Allows you to kind of graphically separate that information. Now, it's one thing to see their video wall, and let me tell you that we are seeing their video wall actually in pixel perfect form. So that is a 5:2 video wall, so 10 times high definition. There is actually 10 times worth of high definition video being streamed to me right now, and we can be viewing it on the video wall, and of course I'm also viewing it here remotely, from my home office, which is normally very difficult to achieve with other architectures because you have to have lots of external components, often not made by the same manufacturer, and certainly not being able to be caught and received and decoded by the same manufacturer. So we found that's very important, both for security purposes, latency purposes, as well as just general audio-video performance of that stream. So a CineMassive processor is creating that stream and is catching it as well. But let's move on to how do I communicate with this team. So that's where CineAgent comes back in. So I have a team session pulled up. I'm going to go in there. We all know Tom, so I'm going to call Tom. And it's calling him now. And if we had this system hooked up, I'd be able to talk to Tom and coordinate a response with him. Tom must be doing something better with his time right now, so I'm going to let that go. Jumping back out, I want to now demonstrate how maybe I'm going to play the role of a remote operations staff member. I want to share my desktop not only with the remote operations center, but have that flow up to the regional operations center. So what we've heard from a lot of our customers right now is a lot of them are working in a limited staff or 50-50 model where 50% of the remote the staff is still working, still a part of the operations center response, but isn't physically in the command center. So let's say I'm an analyst and I need to share something on my screen with the team. And to do that, I'm going to use the desktop streaming feature built into CineNet. You'll see down here on the bottom right, if I click this little icon, here I can add my desktop. So the one I'm using at home, I'm going to stream one of my displays to the remote operations center for collaboration in that space. So let's add this desktop streaming asset. So here I can pick either a screen or an application. In this case, I'm going to pick an entire screen. I'm going to hit share. CineNet has just made a secure connection between my desktop and the remote operations center system. So now you'll see there's a new asset here. Let's drag it up on the wall and go into live mode so you can see this in action. I will also have you note that because I'm not only sharing my desktop to the remote operations center and the remote operations center is sharing to the primary operations center, all of us are able to see this content. So let me I'm going to full screen the image on my desktop so everyone can see it. You'll see that's now reflected on the video wall in the remote operations center as well. And that is then, of course, being redirected and shared with the team there. So now that we've created this ad hoc connection and we've collaborated on this information, now I need to end this session. I'm going to go and hit stop sharing on that asset. So here I'm going to do that now. And you'll see that stream disappears from the video wall because CineNet has actually removed that connection entirely, for the security of both the user and the remote operations center system. So let's go back in there and recall the layout we were using. So, at the beginning of this demonstration, I talked about flexibility. And I've shown you a couple points. So one, I was able to make a new asset that was not previously in the system. I was also able to create a layout on the fly for recall later. Let's take that one step further, and I want to share with you our behaviors module. So a behavior, much like an activity, is a single button operation that sends off a series of commands. So think of an activity like a collection of behaviors, and a behavior is like the independent component within that. So one behavior I already have set up as share to team. So if I clicked that, for instance, I'm going to share a patrolling camera with our video conference codec. So if I go into there, you're going to see there's a camera patrolling on this particular endpoint. So now anybody who's connected to that session is able to view this content as well. Of course, I can go grab additional content and place it on. For instance, let's send our Google Earth information. I can even go in there and manage this particular application while in that session. So it's a really great way to kind of quickly share content through a platform you maybe already have, and that's using a behavior. So let's make a new behavior just to show you how quick and easy and flexible that is. So right now you'll see I only have the one behavior. Let's go add another. So as an admin, I can go into the behavior section and add another. So let's do that now. I've given my behavior a name, and I'm going to give it a short description. I can then determine whether this is a behavior that continuously loops or stops at the end of the behavior's actions. I can then give it a appropriate icon. In this case, I'm going to give it the fire icon. And from here, I can choose from this list. This list is actually pre-populated based on what the system functions allow or have been configured for. So if there are CineLink encoders and third-party devices and audio systems, it's going to show those as options within this behavior. To demonstrate this, I'm actually going to have it cycle through some layouts. Let's go to first the daily operations layout, what we started this webinar with. I'm going to give it a short delay and call up another layout. And we're going to go to the remote operations center escalation layout. And then finally, let's go ahead and end up on the demo layout that we created together at the beginning of this demonstration. So that that layout wasn't there, and there was even content in some cases that wasn't even in this layout to begin with. All of that was made during this webinar. Add one more delay, and then have it clear the wall, signifying the end of this behavior. So I'm going to go back into my emergency operations center, and you'll see there's now a webinar behavior button, and there's a little flag that says, hey, this is what this does. That's really important for users who are coming to the system who maybe weren't a part of the creation of that button. And I'm going to go ahead and click that, and you're going to see everything change. It quickly changed to these various layouts, and it's going to change to the demo layout we created together, and then it's going to clear. Other examples of behaviors, you can base them on a time of day. You can also trigger them with external devices as well. So some really great functionality. Thank you for letting me share it with you. I'm going to turn this back over to Chris, who's going to help take us through the Q&A section of this webinar. Thank you.
Terrific. Thanks so much, Aaron. We appreciate that great overview of our latest release of the CineNet platform. If anyone is interested in seeing an interactive demo specifically for your organization, go ahead and email us directly at sales@cinemassive.com. Again, that's sales@cinemassive.com. Now we'll go ahead and get into the Q&A here. Please feel free to submit any questions in the chat. You should be able to denote them with the question mark icon, and then they'll be queued up. I'll go ahead and read off the questions, and Aaron will address them. So let's see here. Got a few coming in right now. Just one moment. All right, to begin with, what browser type does CineAgent use?
Good question, Michael. So we use the Chromium browser. So when you create a website in CineNet, CineNet starts the Chromium browser, and the Chromium browser then navigates to the URL you added. You also have the option of what we refer to as pinning that CineAgent session so that URL basically stays up in a persistent fashion.
Okay, here, let me get through some other questions here. Categorize them for us. Coming up now, how does sound work on this platform?
So sound works a few different ways. So using our CineLink product, that's a device that we have that generally gets installed at the workstation. It can actually capture the audio from that workstation. It is now a stream, and that can be decoded by our decoders. Then you would connect that decoder to a digital sound processor of your choice. So the video runs through the video processor. The audio runs alongside, but ultimately gets processed by the digital sound processor. And of course, as I mentioned in the demonstration, you can control, so you can select which audio source per zone, at what level, what audio reinforcement. So they're kind of running side by side.
Okay, terrific. And our next question, how do you connect assets in your video wall system?
So a number of ways. The most common way is to use the CineLink product that I just referenced. So in a typical command center setting, they would get installed at or near the workstation. That workstation would then be connected to the CineLink. That CineLink then generates a stream, which is received by the video wall processor. You also have the option to directly connect any sort of source device directly to the back of the processor. We support any modern digital format, and then the system also produces a lot of the content as well. Time zone clocks that I referenced in the demonstration are actually produced by the processor. There is also, if the administrator of the system allows it, you can also allow the option to upload files. So typical use of that would be like multimedia files, video files, or picture files. And then the quantity that you can connect somewhat depends on the method. So if it's physically connected, you're just limited to the number of physical connections on the processor, which is configurable. If it is using our CineLink, then there is no quantity limitation. The only limitation is what you can actually see on the wall.
All right, our next question here. Will all users need to be on the same network?
Yes. So the way this system works is you have to be able to access the network that the core CineNet services are on. So that would typically be the network that the processor is on, or you'd need some sort of bridge into that network, which is typically a VPN.
Okay. And now, when did we release live mode?
Live mode came out with our, I believe our 3.4 release, our 3.5 release earlier this year.
Excellent. And can I use Active Directory or some other sign-on service?
You can. So we support the SAML 2.0 standard, which also supports Active Directory. We've done our own integration testing with a lot of the major single sign-on providers, Shibboleth, OneLogin, Okta, and a few others.
Great. Let's see here. Our next question. Can we use a remote into the video wall, like working from home, via a link or VPN?
You can definitely do it with a VPN. We are actually currently working on our own link-based method as well.
And our next question. Can you please confirm that third-party control system can recall or launch behaviors, assuming the behavior has to be created prior to the recall, or can you create a behavior also using third-party control?
Yes. So the behaviors have been exposed to our API, which allows them to be recalled by certain third-party control systems.
All right, and so our next one coming in. What type of hardware is needed on premise?
So you need at least a minimum of one of our processors. So if you go to cinemassive.com and you navigate to our AlphaFX processor section, you'll see an array going from the smaller units as well as mobile units up to very large systems. Those generally need to be on premises because they are what is driving the video to the video wall. They're also what's capturing all the source content. Lastly, they are providing the user experience that you just saw. So that needs to be on premises. Certain items like CineAgent module nodes, as well as CineLinks, do not. So we have a number of customers who, as a method of connecting one command center to another, might use our CineLink product to bring workstations in that might be in a different country into their main command center that might be here in the United States.
All right. Next is streaming device, IP cameras, etc. decoding achieved through software or hardware?
It is a hardware decode. So every capture card has a amount of processing power. So it does depend on resolution, frame rate, color space specifications of that stream. Just to give you an example, one capture card, and you can of course continue to add them, can decode 8 1080p 60 hertz 420 IP streams concurrently. Of course, if you need to decode more IP cameras or CineLinks or any other IP video source, you would just continue to add those capture cards to the processor, and our team can help you figure out what chassis that each one, how many cards each chassis can contain.
All right. Next up, can you share sound through Cinenet similar to the same way remote users screen share?
Not currently, but it is something we are looking into for a future version of CineNet.
All right. What is a delay in live mode on mouse clicks? Is it ergonomic enough for customers?
Absolutely. So that's one of the reasons why we did it this way. So, a lot of other platforms will use services like VNC, which just generally aren't very performant. So we've clocked the latency, anywhere from about 150 to 250. So 150 is well within almost everyone's tolerances. It actually in person it feels almost as if you're sitting at that machine.
Excellent. And what type of sources can be displayed?
So I mean, if your source can generate video, it can be displayed. It can be consumed one way or another. So that's PCs, workstations, media players, Blu-ray players, cable boxes, satellite receivers, tablets. If it can generate external video in some way, there is a way to receive it in the processor.
All right. Next, does it require special training or certification to use?
No, it does not. So oftentimes our users are trained in less than an hour, and certainly no certification is needed. If you want to get trained to the level of administration, it might take a couple more hours of tutorial. I briefly showed the administration menu in the demonstration, but yeah, one of the things that we feel very strongly about at CineMassive is ease of use is one of the most important aspects of a technology like this. It's what allows them to the technology to actually support your business need or mission without getting in the way.
All right. Is there a control API for CineNet software?
There is. So actually the entire CineNet software, so the entire user interface that I was using in the demonstration is using our API, and we've exposed parts of that API for external use. So whether it be some sort of browser application or third-party software wants to send commands to CineNet to get some sort of reaction from third-party devices, audio video devices, or present something to the wall, all of that is possible.
All right. Coming up, can we show a hardware diagram of all equipment needed?
Yes. I'm going to use the screen sharing feature here. So you should be able to see my screen. This is because our systems can be configured in numerous ways to support different configurations and different use cases. Our website is a great resource to find more exacting information, but for the purposes of the webinar, I'm going to share this as kind of the most basic way, which is where you have workstations and laptops that often get captured by our CineLink product. Tablets and servers and other devices might be directly plugged in. IP cameras can be captured, and of course, it is also served up to the commands to external devices like your video conference codec, TV tuner, audio systems, and of course, the user can use their desktop or a tablet to control the system. As long as you have that device can run a modern browser, it can be used as the control system, and of course, it goes out to the displays. There are a number of alternate configurations where we move some of the CineNet services to redundant processors or external processors, which we can go into. Feel free to give us a call to learn more about that.
Okay, let's get back to our question and answer. Back to that screen. Let's see here. Our next one up is, how do you share a live stream of your video wall to remote users?
So two different ways. The first way is if your users are familiar with CineNet and you've given them a login, they can, of course, log into CineNet just like I showed on the demonstration and just turn on live mode. That allows them to see the entire video wall in real time, and they can then, when they're done with that session, just end that browser session. If you want to stream your video wall in its entire full resolution, let's say to another command center, we would then encode the video wall in the processor, and then it gets streamed and then received by a second CineMassive AlphaFX processor. And then, of course, it can be placed on that video wall there. So two different methods depending on what suits your needs. So the live mode is designed to get a single user to see the video wall, whereas or multiple users independently to see the video wall. And of course, the full resolution streaming, you would use generally have a processor at a second site to see it in pixel perfect form, as I demonstrated on the webinar.
All right. Can your system show bandwidth utilization? How about frame rate statistics to detect degraded video streams?
It does not show you that in real time. However, it is configurable. So you can set bandwidth utilization parameters. You have actually a tremendous amount of control over the stream. We're using H.264 for that full video wall stream, and WebRTC for the video wall stream that goes to the browser. But where most people are concerned about bandwidth is streaming the entire video wall, or many workstations. So the answer to that is, generally speaking, your workstations are streamed on a LAN, where bandwidth, generally speaking, isn't a concern. Where our customers have asked this in the past is, they might have a video wall system in Hawaii or Singapore or London or other places streaming back to a command center in the United States. And those might all have different bandwidth upload capabilities. So each of those sites may have to change those settings, independently. So we made sure that the administrator of that site has a lot of control over resolution, frame rate, color space, quantization, as well as just choosing a finite amount of bandwidth, and do the best, and then it auto negotiates and does the best it can with that bandwidth. I hope that answers that question.
All right. And how is the resolution of the output?
By output, I'm assuming you're meaning the output of the video wall processor. So it is variable, anywhere from under full HD, which is not a likely scenario, full HD, all the way up to UHD or 4K at 60 hertz. Is the resolution output. It is configurable though, and you can also have different outputs output to different resolutions. Where that's might be critical is you have an LED video wall for the main command center, but you have a smaller video wall in a crisis management area, and you might also have a video conference codec that you'd like to loop into the system. We can output all those different resolutions to make sure that every device gets what it is intended to ingest.
All right. And our next question, what is the bandwidth requirements for the demonstration you just showed?
So I'll just jump on and add to the last question. One part actually I should mention is we're also using delta compression. So it only updates pixels that move. So it's variable. So if, let's say, you have a 10 panel video wall, I would say, the worst case scenario is, where that's full motion, high color, max, like max resolution, that might come in at about 50 megabits. However, that's really unlikely to be the case because, generally speaking, your content won't all be moving. Especially if it's like charts and other graphs, it won't be moving at all, in which case the bandwidth utilization drops to near zero. It's only using bandwidth if the stream is on your video wall. So let's say you're streaming a video wall from one command center to the next. If the command center A has not dragged that video wall onto their video wall, it's actually using no bandwidth. And of course, when they do, it's going to be dependent on what you were showing, what was on that video wall.
All right. Next up, how far can the main command center and remote center be? Is the connection over internet?
Yeah, anywhere that the internet reaches. So it is streaming over the internet, and you're generally, it's generally secured over a VPN or through a VPN.
Next up, what is the biggest control room you can design?
So CineMassive does not design control rooms, but I'll dive into that question a little bit more. So there's a number of factors in design, ergonomics, acoustics, lighting, seating. For that, CineMassive has a number of great partners. As far as the video system, the video wall system. So I mean, our the biggest system we've ever produced had thousands of LED panels. We believe it's probably likely one of the two largest ones, at least in the, I would say Western Hemisphere or Western side of the world. And you can have any number of inputs so long as you're using our CineLink or CineAgent products in that as well.
Okay, moving on. With PIV authentication, which is part of the smart card, with PIV authentication, which is part of the smart card to get authenticated with your network, does the network support PIV authentication? Did you get that last question, Aaron?
No, sorry. Say again?
Oh yeah, with PIV authentication, which is part of the smart card to get authenticated with your network, does the network support PIV authentication?
I am not sure. What I'll have to do is ask our development team. I think the short answer is no. I believe we will support it as we move through the DISA APL process. But I think right now the answer is no, but it would be on the near term roadmap as we approach the DISA APL process, which that is a part of that requirement.
And coming up next, is there a limit to the number of sources that can be showed in live mode? PC performance, for example. What happens if you go beyond?
So what live mode is doing is just sharing the video wall. So while there certainly is some limit, we have not found any of our customers or any of our testing to find that limit. So it actually, when it's generating those live mode streams, it's actually it's not very resource intensive. We have not found that limit, but we're sure there is one.
All right. Next up, does it offer recording of the session being presented on the video wall during any event?
CineMassive does not have, we have not added a recording feature. While it is possible to redirect the streams to a third-party recording system, we have not built the user interface or product to support recording directly. It's something on our minds. It's something we're thinking about. One of the biggest challenges with recording in the command center, one is making sure that recording is secured by any major standard, but also what else needs to be recorded. So if you're recording for instance, an after action review scenario, do we also need to have metadata about certain events? Do we also need to record the room audio so we can understand the chatter that might have been happening in that space? It's actually a really big task. It's something we're taking very seriously. And when we do, we'll certainly make sure everybody knows.
All right. And next up, is your system based on encoder-decoder structure?
No. So we use an encoder in our CineLink. And of course, the Cine agent is also encoding video. The decoder portion is actually built into a card that goes into the video processor, but it's not just an encoder decoder. You just can't get the video performance that we showed you in a pure encoder decoder model. We do some post processing of that video, and that's why you're able to get those smooth transitions and annotation, overlay, and some of the other features that we offer.
All right, and next up, can you have multiple users view the video wall remotely simultaneously?
Yes. Going back to what I believe was the previous question about this. Yeah. So when we create that live stream, it is not very resource intensive, so it can be viewed by many users, more than we've been able to test actually. We don't yet know what that limit might be.
All right. And next, do you have redundancy on the wall processor? What happens if it fails?
So we offer two different redundancy paths within our own product. So first, the core services can be moved to what we call a site manager. So it's something you can see on our website. And what the site manager does is if the core processor were to ever fail, Actually, it allows you to route video around it to our CineLink decoders, which would be plugged into a second input on the video wall. We also have a completely hot video wall processor model. So technically, when the user is doing things in the user interface, it's actually happening on both processors simultaneously. So both of them have live layouts, live assets, live behaviors. Everything is completely exactly the same. And all the user would do is basically switch inputs. And it would be as if nothing ever happened, even if a processor had to be serviced.
Okay, great. Now, when you shared your desktop at home, was that using a CineLink encoder, CineNet, or some other type of screen capturing to streaming software?
So I was using the desktop streaming feature that's in CineNet. So CineNet, the software, was using a software streaming component. We actually use the WebRTC protocol to establish that stream from my desktop to the processor.
Okay. Next up, one video wall controller can control how many video walls simultaneously?
So a single processor can be configured up to 18 outputs. Of course, that can be broken into 4 times that. And if you ever had more video walls in your command center than that could do, 2 processors can actually work together as if they're one, actually more than that, to the point to where there really is no output requirement that the platform really can't reach.
All right, excellent. Next up, do remote users have to be on the same network, i.e. VPN, to stream video wall content, or can it be streamed through the internet? If through the internet's possible, can you give a brief procedure on how this can be achieved?
So on the procedure into this, what I would recommend is you reach out to sales at CineMassive so we can actually get a dedicated demonstration for you. So there's a number of ways to stream content through this platform. So the stream that I did from my desktop to the video wall processor, I was actually just using CineNet, and I was connected through a VPN. It can also be configured to stream over the internet. That is all network configuration and integration based. So that'll take a little bit more than I can give you in this webinar.
All right. A few more questions left. Do you have IP KVM to go with Wall Solution?
So our CineAgent product is a software-based KVM, but we're actually also have in the works an IP KVM solution as well. That product is not yet released yet.
Okay, and in our environment, we send an asset to multiple displays. Are you going to update the software to support drawing on the asset versus drawing on a single display?
Great question. So right now we are actually drawing on the display. However, we actually have that feature slated in our 4. Release. So we're actually currently working on our 4.0 version of software, and one of the main features we wanted to improve the annotation experience, and by doing that, you'll actually be able to annotate. I think the intent of the question is on the content versus the display, so it will be in that version.
All right, terrific. And can you share your partners for control room design?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say contact sales at CineMassive, and happy to broker some introductions based on your requirements, your location, and your needs.
Okay, that's currently all the questions we have submitted right now. Unless we have any additional ones, I believe that should be it. See any more coming in at the moment now? So terrific. It looks like that's everything for today. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us here today. You'll all soon receive an email with a link to this recorded presentation in full. In addition, we would also like to invite you to our next webinar on June 4th, titled Command Center Best Practices, Increasing Performance of Web-Based Video Sources. You can register today for that or look for an invitation coming into your inbox soon. We hope to see you all there, and have a great day.